In this video, I will show you how to create and manage MongoDB databases. First things to do, if you shut down your MongoDB server, restart it. Then, to know more about CRUD operation in MongoDB, go to mongodb.com, select Docs and MongoDB server. From the index, go to CRUD operations. In there you will find a lot of details about how to query MongoDB. For instance, we could start with create operations in order to know how to insert new records in the database. In here the documentation says that to add a new document, we should run the query db.collectionname.insert and then specify the document data. Let's open RoboMongo to start writing our queries. In RoboMongo, select your Mongo server and press Connect. Once you are connected, right-click on the connection name and select Create Database. Give it a name, for instance, TestDB. Right-click on the database name you just created and select Open Shell. If not visible yet, just right-click and select Refresh. In the shell, you can now write your queries. As we just read in the documentation, you write DB, the collection name, let's call it books, and if this collection is not in your database, it will create it automatically. Then insert, and then we write our document. So we add the title, description, and price. Once the query is ready, we can click on this icon to execute the query. We immediately get a response saying that the new record was inserted. And if now you go under collections in your database, you will find books collection. If you click twice on books collection, it will automatically launch a query and a tab where you can access the data in the collection. RoboMongo lets you visualize data in different formats. Let's select to view in text mode the data. And there you are. You can see that the record or document was created. Let's now insert an array of documents. We will insert other two books. So we can just copy and paste and edit the contents. If you execute the query and also execute the second query to read from database in the second tab, you will see that the two new books were added to the database. Now, going back to the documentation, you will see that in order to read data, you use the query db.collectionname.find and eventually specify the query criteria. So let's go back to RoboMongo. You see that previously RoboMongo has launched a query to find all records and therefore didn't specify any criteria. Let's copy the ID from the second book and paste it inside the curly braces. And if you execute this query, only the book matching the specified criteria is now shown. Now let's remove the criteria and execute to display back all records. Let's use the $GT operator in your criteria to look for all records with a price greater than 15. Execute, and as you see, you can also use operators to refine your find method. Let's remove the criteria and execute again. Now we will explore the update method. The syntax to update is collection name update, and then you specify at least two arguments: filter criteria and update action. Optionally, you can refine your update method adding options. We will see two options example in a moment. Going back to RoboMongo, we will copy the ID of the first book to use as a filter criteria to update this book. We will use the $set operator to update the title, and we don't specify any options. If you execute the query, you will see that the title, the specified ID, has changed. $set operator works in a way that if it doesn't find any matching fields, it will create a new field. Let's for instance ask to update a field discount which doesn't exist in books. If you execute this query, you will see that in the first book a field discount was created automatically. Let's now discover a couple of options for the update method. We change last two digits of the ID in order to have in the criteria one ID that doesn't match any in the database. And bear in mind that whatever ID you write, it must comply with the correct length. So don't replace entirely the ID, just the last two digits. We then set a title. And as option, we set upset to true. Basically, if upset is true, it asks MongoDB to create a new record if the criteria doesn't match. Indeed, if you execute this query, you will see that a new record was added to the collection. Now, I will show you another option to update multiple records matching the criteria. Let's say that if the price is greater than 20, then set a new discount field to 55. And in order to execute the query for multiple records, we specify the option multi equal to true. If you execute this query, you can see that two records were updated correctly. Finally, let's explore the remove method to delete records. We grab the ID of the record we want to delete and we pass it inside the remove method. If you execute this, you can see that the record was deleted correctly. Alright, by now you should have developed enough knowledge to make queries in MongoDB.